Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the week ending. I'm Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program today. The Chancellor, George Osborne, has praised the government's efforts in tackling Britain's debts, economic crisis, promoting and sustaining a growing Britain. The Chancellor made this known during the autumn statement in the House of Commons.
A commitment we made to the British people that we would put security first, to protect our economic security by taking the difficult decisions to live within our means and bring down our debt, and to protect our national security by defending our country's interests abroad and keeping our citizens safe at home. Economic and national security provide the foundations for everything we want to support: opportunity for all, the aspirations of families, the strong country we want to build. 5 years ago, when I presented our first spending review, our economy was in crisis, and as their letter said, there was no money left. We were borrowing £1 in every 4 we spent, and our job then was to rescue Britain. Today, as we present this spending review, our job is to rebuild Britain. Build our finances, build our defences, build our society, so that Britain becomes the most prosperous and secure of all the major nations of the world. And so we leave to the next generation a stronger country than the one we inherited. And that is what this government was elected to do. And today we set out the plan to deliver on that commitment. Mr. Speaker, we have committed to running a surplus. Today I can confirm that the 4-year public spending plans that I set out are forecast to deliver that surplus, so we don't borrow forever and are ready for whatever storms lie ahead. We promise to bring our debts down. Today, the forecast I present shows that after the longest period of rising debt in our modern history, this year our debt will fall and keep falling in every year that follows. We promised to move Britain from being a high welfare, low wage economy to a lower welfare, higher wage economy. Today I can tell the House that the £12 billion of welfare savings we committed to at the election will be delivered in full, and delivered in a way that helps families as we make the transition to our national living wage. We promised that we would strengthen our national defences, take the fight to our nation's enemies, and project our country's influence abroad. Today, this spending review delivers the resources to ensure that Britain, unique in the world, will meet its twin obligations to spend 0.7% of its income on development and 2% on the defence of the realm. But this spending review not only ensures the economic and national security of our country, it builds on it. It sets out far-reaching changes to what the state does and how it does it. It reforms our public services so we truly extend opportunity to all, whether it's the way we educate our children, train our workforce, rehabilitate our prisoners, provide homes for our families, deliver care for our elderly and sick, or the way we hand back power to local communities. This is a big spending review by a government that does big things. It's a long-term economic plan for our country's future. Mr. Speaker, nothing is possible without the foundations of a strong economy. So let me turn to the new forecasts provided by the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility, and let me thank Robert Choate and his team for their work. Since the summer budget, new economic data has been published which confirm this. Since 2010, no economy in the G7 has grown faster than Britain. We've grown almost 3 times faster than Japan, twice as fast as France, faster than Germany, and at the same rate as the United States. And that growth has not been fueled by an irresponsible banking boom like in the last decade. Business investment has grown more than twice as fast as consumption. Exports have grown faster than imports, and the North has grown faster than the South. For we're determined that this will be an economic recovery for all, felt in all parts of our nation. And that is already happening. in which area of the country are we seeing the strongest jobs growth? Not just in our capital city. The Midlands is creating jobs 3 times faster than London and the South East. In the past year, we've seen more people in work in the Northern Powerhouse than ever before. And where do we have the highest employment rate of any part of our country? In the southwest of England. Our long-term economic plan is working. But the OBR, Mr. Speaker, reminds us today of the huge challenges we still face at home and abroad. Our debts are too high and our deficit remains. Productivity is growing, but we still lag behind most of our competitors. And I can tell the House that in today's forecast, the expectations for world growth and world trade have been revised down again. The weakness of the Eurozone remains a persistent problem. There are rising concerns about debt in emerging economies. These are yet more reasons why we are determined to take the necessary steps to protect our economic security. And that brings me to the forecasts for our own GDP. Even with the weaker global picture, our economy this year is predicted to grow by 2.4%. Growth is then revised up from the budget forecast in the next 2 years to 2.4% in 2016 and 2.5% in 2017. It then starts to return to its long-term trend with growth of 2.4% in 2018 and 2.3% in 2019 and 2020.
The Chancellor George Osborne has cancelled the plan to cut tax credits. The proposed tax credit cut had faced criticism even from the House of Lords, which voted against it.
The improved public finances allow us to reach the same goal of a surplus while cutting less in the early years. We can smooth the path to the same destination. And that means we can help on tax credits. Now, I've been asked to help in the transition as Britain moves to the higher wage, lower welfare, lower tax society that the country wants to see. And I've had representations that these changes to tax credits should be phased in. I've listened to the concerns, I hear and understand them, and because I've been able to announce today an improvement in the public finances, the simplest thing to do is not to phase these changes in, but to avoid them altogether. Tax credits are being phased out anyway as we introduce universal credit. And what that means is that the tax credit taper rate and threshold remain unchanged. The disregard will be £2,500. I propose no further changes to the universal credit taper or to the work allowances beyond those passed through Parliament last week. The minimum income floor in universal credit will rise with the national living wage. I set a lower welfare cap at the budget. The House should know that helping with the transition obviously means that we will not be within that lower welfare cap in the first years. But the House should also know that thanks to our welfare reforms, we meet the cap in the later part of this Parliament. Indeed, on the figures published today, we still achieve the £12 billion per year of welfare savings we promised.
In the meantime, in another U-turn, the Chancellor also announced that the government would not be going ahead with the plan to cut the police budgets.
But, Mr. Speaker, security starts at home. Our police are on the front line of the fight to keep us safe. In the last Parliament, we made savings in police budgets, but thanks to the reforms of my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, and the hard work of police officers, crime fell and the number of neighbourhood officers increased. That reform must continue in this Parliament. We need to invest in new state-of-the-art mobile communications for our emergency services, introduce new technology at our borders, and increase the counter-terrorism budget by 30%. We should allow elected police and crime commissioners greater flexibility in raising local precepts in those areas where they've been historically low. And further savings can be made in the police as different forces merge their back offices and share expertise. And we will provide a new fund to help with this reform. Now, Mr. Speaker, I've had representations from the Shadow Home Secretary that police budgets should be cut by 10%. But now is not the time for further police cuts. Now is the time to back our police and give them the tools to do the job. I am today announcing that there will be no cuts in the police budget at all. There will be real terms that protect the police. Now, Mr. Speaker, 5 years ago, when I presented my first spending review, the country was on the brink of bankruptcy and our economy was in crisis. We took the difficult decisions back then, and 5 years later, I report on an economy growing faster than its competitors and public finances set to reach a surplus of £10 billion. Today, we have set out the further decisions necessary to build this country's future. Sometimes difficult, yes, but decisions that build the great public services families rely on. Build the infrastructure and the homes that people need, build stronger defences against those who threaten our way of life, and build the strong public finances upon which all these things depend. We were elected as a one-nation government. Today, we deliver the spending review of a one-nation government. The guardians of economic security, the protectors of national security, the builders of our better future, this government, the mainstream representatives of the working people of Britain.
Meanwhile, the Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell has described the Chancellor's autumn statement as a betrayal and a disappointment.
5 years on. So can I just say today that the Chancellor's got some front to come to this House and to talk to us about deficit and to lecture us about deficit reduction. Today is the day when the Chancellor was supposed to announce austerity was over, the deficit was controlled. From what people have heard today, I think they'll feel absolutely betrayed. The reality is this, that after 5 years, the deficit has not been eliminated, and this year it's predicted to be over £70 billion. Instead of taking 5 years to eliminate the deficit, as he promised, it's going to take 10. And debt to GDP will not be the 69% he promised 5 years ago. As he said today, it will be 82.5%. And we're now potentially to bequeath to our children a debt of £1.5 trillion. £1.5 trillion. Their debt.
The Prime Minister David Cameron has appealed for support from members of the Parliament to join the coalition airstrikes against the Islamic State group in Syria following the attacks in Paris.
Shouldn't be content with outsourcing our security to our allies. If we believe that action can help protect us, then with our allies, we should be part of that action, not standing aside from it. And from this moral point comes a fundamental question. If we won't act now, when our friend and ally France has been struck in this way, then our allies in the world can be forgiven for asking, if not now, when? But, Mr. Speaker, we do face a fundamental threat to our security. We can't wait for a political transition. We have to hit these terrorists in their heartlands right now. And we must not shirk our responsibility for security or hand it to others. Mr. Speaker, throughout our history, the United Kingdom has stood up to defend our values and our way of life. We can and we must do so again. And I commend this statement to the House.
And finally, US President Barack Obama has promised to support France with all the required assistance to defeat ISIS following the recent attacks in Paris.
It's been noted that the terrorists did not direct their attacks against the French government or military. Rather, they focused their violence on the very spirit of France, and by extension on all liberal democracies. This was an attack on our free and open societies, where people come together to celebrate and sing and compete, in targeting venues where people come together from around the world, killing citizens of nearly 20 countries, including America. This was an attack on the very idea that people of different races and religions and backgrounds can live together in peace. In short, this was not only a strike against one of the world's great cities, it was an attack against the world itself. It's the same madness that has slaughtered the innocent from Nigeria to the Sinai, from Lebanon to Iraq. It is a scourge that threatens all of us. And that's why, for more than a year, the United States, France, and our coalition of some 65 nations have been united in one mission: to destroy these ISIL terrorists and defeat their vile ideology. Today, President Roulant and I reviewed our coalition's progress. More than 8,000 airstrikes, combined with local partners on the ground, have pushed ISIL back from territory in both Iraq and Syria. Today, President Roulant and I agreed that our nations must do even more together. U.S. assistance has supported recent French strikes in Syria, and we're going to keep stepping up that coordination. And as we saw with the attack in Mali, the terrorist threat goes beyond ISIL. This week I'll sign legislation to sustain our support, including airlift and intelligence, to allies like France as we work together to root out terrorist networks in Africa. We'll do even more to prevent attacks at home. Building on our recent intelligence agreement, the United States will continue to quickly share threat information with France. And in the wake of Paris and with the threats in Belgium, there's also a growing recognition among European nations that they need to ramp up additional efforts to prevent the flow of foreign terrorist fighters. As part of that, I'm calling on the European Union to finally implement the agreement that's been long in the works that would require airlines to share passenger information so we can do more to stop foreign terrorist fighters from entering our countries undetected. And I'm prepared to send teams of our experts to work on this with our European partners to make sure we're redoubling our efforts together.
That's all we have for you on News Roundup this week. Thank you for being part of the program. I am Tunde Alabi, and to have a very good week ahead of you. Bye. As part of our continued efforts to reach the African and other ethnic communities in the United Kingdom with greater impacts and create the platform to hear your silent and unheard views in this hugely growing community in the United Kingdom, our channel, Ben TV, presents to you another live current affairs television program. Our focus on the program is to review and discuss issues around the diaspora community in the UK. The program offers you that unrestricted voice on issues affecting you in the UK. Join us live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Another business segment of Dialogue in Diaspora, 2 to 3 p.m. every Monday. But guess what? You know you can be part of the program. Just send us an email at bentelevisionuk@gmail.com. Dialogue in Diaspora, your voice, your opinion on our TV.